Cathy McLeish here again with Alcoholism Unpacked. And here's a good fact for you about alcoholism. We had another person pass away, die of alcoholic drinking in our circle of recovery, my circle of recovery. And I've been sober a long time, and I've seen a lot of people die. And I've seen a lot of people die sober, and they've cleaned up their life, they've cleaned up their relationships. I've gone to memorials and funerals, and people have spoken highly of these people who have kind of turned things around with their alcoholic drinking and had a chance to win back their families and their friends. And that's always really beautiful. But the stories that really kind of stick with me are the people that don't get that chance, that for whatever reason, and it's usually this alcoholic thinking that we think we have under control, that we think we know what we're doing, that we're smarter than this next drink. It won't happen to us. I will do differently than she did. I will do differently than what he did. I'm not that stupid. I won't drink that much. Those are the stories that stick with me because they can't come back and say, I was wrong. And they aren't sitting in those circles anymore telling people, don't do it that way. It didn't work that way. I can remember one time, one of the strongest stories is there was a guy, and he was in a recovery meeting atmosphere, and he was in a wheelchair. And his story was so heart-wrenching. I mean, if you didn't know anything about alcoholism, you would be like, oh my gosh, wow. Because he had been in a car accident. He was on a railroad track. The train had come and it pulled him for, I don't know, a mile and a half. He had been rushed to the hospital. His heart had stopped. He was brought back to life. And as he sits in this meeting in this wheelchair, he tells us this is the third time that's happened, that he's been brought back to life from medical people. And he is sure that God has a purpose for his life. And it was only a matter of time until he wasn't around anymore, because that wasn't the last time that he drank. And I always think about that, and I think, really, does it take that crazy of an incident to happen to an alcoholic who is drinking for them to come out on the other side safe and alive? And then they realize that God has a purpose for their life, like God didn't have a purpose for their life the moment they took their first breath. I kind of think of it that way. I think of it that way, and I think the alcoholic goes down this path, and they cross over from normal drinking to heavy drinking to alcoholic drinking to being a full-blown alcoholic. However that happens, whatever you believe that process is. And once they are there, if they are lucky enough to hear the answer, to find the answer, to end up in a hospital, taken in by medics, brought back to life, however it happens, even if they get a DUI and they end up in a 12-step program by force through the court system, if they hear the truth about their alcoholism, then that is where the process can start. Once you hear the truth, once you know this is what your fate is, if you don't stop drinking, there is no good that's going to happen. They will say you will end up in a morgue, in a prison, or in a mental facility. Those are going to be your choices if you don't stop drinking. So once that happens, once you receive that information, that's when we know we've been set on the right track. Not when something catastrophic happens and we're alive on the other end of it. Because you know what? For every person that sits in a recovery atmosphere telling their story, there are a half a dozen that could be in their chair that aren't, because whatever they thought was going to work the next time did not work. I can remember one of the first stories that really rocked my world. I was early in sobriety, maybe I was 30 years old. I was a young mother, and a girl that I have sat in recovery with that had gone in and out, that struggled to stay sober, had gone back out, was drinking wine, drinking too much wine, got in a bathtub, passed out, blacked out, and drowned, and was found in the bathtub by her 6-year-old son. And I remember thinking horrifically, I knew her, I saw her, I talked to her, and she's gone. And not only is she gone, I was a young mother, I had daughters. She had a son who found her after she had taken those drinks and passed out, blacked out, and then died. And I thought, I don't know what I thought back then. I thought, this is serious. This is life and death. They've always said it was life and death, but now I know somebody that was alive and now they are dead. And it became so much more real to me that it could happen to any one of us that decides to go back out after we know the truth about our alcoholic drinking. And so over the years, I've had story after story of people that I know, that I talk to, that had this amount of sobriety, and then they chose to do something different. It always saddens me. Sometimes it makes me actually very angry because this disease is so cunning and baffling. And at the same time that somebody is trying to build their life back up, their mind is so warped and entangled in this desire to drink and the idea that they could do it again and they could come out on the other side. They could have fun again as a normal drinker. And it doesn't happen. I've never heard of it happening, that somebody like me could go back out and drink normally. After we cross the line, we don't get to go back on the other side of the line. And while that sounds harsh, and maybe even like a big disappointment, this side of the line is a really good life. I love my life on this side of the line. And I wouldn't have said that when I came through the rooms. I wouldn't have wanted that when I first came into recovery. But today I know different. My mind is not warped. I have some sane thinking, and I understand the disease of alcoholism, and I know that to drink can be to die. And so as I think about the fellow that has passed away, as I think about the life that he left behind, the people that he left behind, the hurt and the pain of having to lose someone to the disease of alcoholism, it really saddens my heart. And that is why I stay in the world of recovery and try to make a difference, try to send a message, try to share some of the reality of the disease of alcoholism and the fact that it is not to be mocked, that people who drank once and stopped cannot drink again. They use the expression that once a cucumber turns into a pickle, it cannot be a cucumber again. And though that is so corny, that is the truth about the alcoholic. And yet, it is a good truth. If you will digest it, if you will take it to heart, if you will live the life as a recovering alcoholic, you will find that on the other side, that is where the real living is. And you don't have to take my word for it. Try 30 days sober. Try 60 days sober. Try moving out of your own thinking and getting with some people that have succeeded, where maybe you're struggling to succeed, and see if some of their thinking doesn't take you to a better place in just a few months. So Cathy McLeish sharing just a little bit about the disease of alcoholism in a very sad way today, that alcoholism does kill. And statistically, we know that. But to know it personally, to feel it personally, to see it personally, it is not a fun thing. And we probably don't talk about it enough, or we wouldn't drink like we do. Thanks for listening. Subscribe, follow, and come back.